I have a special speaker coming. There's another Messianic congregation up in the valley. This is not our speaker. He's just giving a little special for a few minutes. The congregation Yeshua Ha'adon, that's up in the valley. Michael Brown is the rabbi, and there's two Michael Browns. There's the apologetic scholar, Michael Brown, and then there's the Messianic rabbi, Michael Brown. So the one up there in the valley, he has someone in his congregation, Rita Ulrich, who's been a faithful supporter of the Messianic Jewish Alliance of America and the whole Messianic movement. We thank you, Ron, for being here with us. He tells me that in 1938, he'll tell you, March, it's a famous date when Adolf Hitler said to the Austrians, you'll either let us come into your country and take it over, or we will kill you. And so the Austrians had a decision to make, and they decided to welcome the Nazis and Hitler in. And it's called the Anschluss. That's when the gathering, when they brought him, welcomed Hitler in. Austria did. And his mom was there in the crowd at that time as Hitler came into power. Also, 6 months later, there was a thing called Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, when it became the official policy of the government to destroy all the Jewish synagogues, kill the Jewish people, break all the glass. It was a horrible time, November 9th and 10th, 1938. And his mom was there for Kristallnacht on the streets. She's not with us any longer, but she has passed all that on to her son, Ron. And so he's going to fill us in and tell us all about those events. So let's give a warm welcome to Rita Ulrich.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. And first of all, am I the only Jew here besides Larry? I say that because I was just saying, am I the only Jew here besides Larry? I'm the only one wearing talit and yarmulke. No, I'm not playing with you. So, of course, I hope a lot of you remember me. I was here back in 2011, 2012, and I was going to another congregation that was meeting Sunday, the last one, I think, in the country. Beth Ariel was coming here on Saturday. And I brought my mom here a couple times, too. You might remember her. And she even brought her to a Seder. Okay, well, I've got a very powerful story to tell you about my mom. Was a Holocaust survivor. And she had very many interesting experiences. And it's just amazing. You'll see how amazing it is that she survived. Okay, my mom, first of all, I want to show you a couple pictures before I forget. This is my mom. And you notice her full set of hair there. That's important that you notice that, because that's going to be an important part of my story in a few moments. Also, there's this one more. Let's see. Is that the hardest part, opening this up? It opened before. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. And a little fellow on the left, she certainly loved very much so. So my mom, I know her as Rita Ulrich. She was born in June 23rd, 1925 in Vienna, Austria. She was born as Henrietta Bienstock meaning beehive, and in the past, going back probably several generations, they were beehive keepers. My mom was an only child. Her father, Moses Ber Bienstock, was an Orthodox Jew. He was a traveling salesman. He sold the materials that were used to repair shoes. And my mom's mom, Clara Bienstock, she had a linen store in Vienna. And so my mom didn't see her dad that much, as he was on the road a lot. And she was pretty much by herself during the day. But for the most part, she had a normal childhood. But then came, my mom was walking on the Linzer Strasse, one of the main streets of Vienna. That was in March 11th or 12th, 1938. And all of a sudden, she heard a big roar of excitement. And she saw all these people there on the street, They were so excited, and they were giving to Heil Hitler. And right at that moment, Hitler was coming down, probably standing in the Jeep and with the German troops, and he was doing the Heil Hitler salute. And my mom, her first instinct was to hide in back of all these people. And so she went as far as possible in back of these people to actually hide from Hitler. It must have been a scary moment. And so, right after that, there was a big increase in anti-Semitism. The children would call my mom different names, like Dirty Jew. All of a sudden, the teachers were Nazis. They would come in with a Hitler salute, and all of the Jewish students were given failing grades. Okay, now I think it's about 8 months later, let's see, November 7th, 1938, a German diplomat there was an assassination attempt on his life on November 7th in Paris by a German Polish Jew, and he was mortally wounded, the diplomat. And 2 days later, November 9th, 1938, at 5:30 p.m., he passed away. And right after that evening, probably just a few hours later, was something called Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, where hundreds of synagogues in Germany, Austria, the German-occupied countries, they were set on fire, burned down, they were destroyed, the windows were smashed. There were about 1,200 synagogues that were badly damaged, and the Jewish businesses, about 6,000 of them, the windows were also smashed, they were looted, they were plundered, they were destroyed. And 30,000 Jewish men were arrested. One of them, including my grandfather, Moses, that I'll get into in a minute, the story, and they were sent to concentration camps like Dachau. So my mom happened to be, I guess, walking home that evening, and she passed by the Staatstemple, or Staatssynagogue in Vienna, and she saw books being burned, probably the Torah. She saw Jewish men being beaten, and she saw at the very top of the synagogue Jewish men hanging from the lampposts. Now, can you imagine that? 13 years old, actually seeing that. When she got home, the police were there, and her father, Moses, wasn't there. They were given orders by the Gestapo to arrest him and turn him over to the Gestapo, and he was sent to the Dachau concentration camp. At that time, though Dachau was a labor camp, the Jewish people were not being killed at that time in late 1938. The gas chambers that the Jewish people eventually were put in, that was part of the final solution. That didn't start until about 1942. So anyways, my grandfather Moses was in a Dachau camp for about 3 months, wearing very little, probably had very little food. It was wintertime also, and they had to do exercises in the very cold weather. Now, there was a way that he could leave at that time and be released, and that is if he had a place to go to. And so a story was made up that he had a ticket to go to China. Yes. And lo and behold, that worked, and he was released. Now, about the same time, there was something called the Kindertransport, and that was a children's transport, and that was where 10,000 children Jewish children, from the Germany and the German-occupied countries, Austria, part of Czechoslovakia, and Poland, ages 3 to 18, they were allowed to immigrate to England. And the way it worked was, this was financed by the Rothschild family. They were sponsored by English families. And so the parents have to get all their documents ready, and the children were then, then the parents would say goodbye to the children, drop them off at the train that would go to Holland and then cross the English Channel. Now you can imagine what a traumatic experience that was for all of them. And my mom told me that her Uncle Moritz, when he was departing, saying goodbye, that he had tears in his eyes, And of course, a lot of parents never saw their children again. They were hoping to join them in England, but they ended up in the concentration camps. Okay, so my mom got to England. Her mother, Clara, joined her later. But any men 18 years and older that wanted to go to England, they were not allowed to go because there were subversives trying to overthrow the government. Also, Nazi sympathizers were not allowed in. And so any Jewish men, including my grandfather, who tried to go to England, they were put in an internment camp called the Isle of Man, which was situated between England and Ireland. Now, I don't know how long he was there, and from what I understand is that Nazis were on that island, actually put on the Isle of Man, probably at a later date, towards the end of the war, and they were actually hung. And so my grandfather Moses wanted to join his family, of course, on the mainland of England. And so he figured that what he would do is induce sickness in his body, and to cause high blood pressure. And so what he did is he did a lot of rigorous exercises, which gave him high blood pressure, and it worked. Another miracle. The Lord was watching over him, blessing him, and then he was released. He joined my mom and his wife in England, and I don't know how long, I don't know what he did or how long he was there, but he did pass away in 1942 at the age of 46, and my mom buried him a few days before she was 17 years old. Okay? And from what I understand, being in the labor camp in Dachau took a big toll on his life, and he may have had a stroke or something. That's what one of the papers say. Okay, now, my mom had some other experiences in England, along with the British people. The Germans, the Nazis, were dropping from their aircraft V-1, it's called the buzz bomb rockets, and also V-2 rockets. And there usually was some warning where the people had a little time to take shelter and go down into the subway, which actually protected them. And a lot of the bombardment of these rockets over England and London would take place at nighttime. And so they would even sleep there during the night, and when it was all clear, they would come out. Now, one day, my mom, she was working in a sewing factory, and there was a big explosion in the building across the street. There were Norwegian Jews there, and the energy of the blast and the wind that was created blew tons of pieces of glass everywhere. And those pieces of glass actually came towards my mom's face. Now remember, you saw her hair? Well, her hair actually blew into her face, protecting her face and her eyes from the glass. So, another blessing for my mom, thank God. But she got a piece of glass in the vein of her wrist, which she ended up in the hospital. They took care of it. And my mom did see a lot of gruesome scenes, though, in the hospital there, she told me. So eventually the war came to an end, and my mom will never forget the day when the war came to an end and everybody was up all night. It was a celebration, the excitement, dancing in the streets, and even the Queen came out on Buckingham Palace. And so after the war ended, my mom, she immigrated to the United States, to Chicago in 1946. That's where she met my dad. My dad was also he was a Jewish Holocaust refugee from Berlin, Germany. Their family escaped to Cuba around 1939-40, where he lived for a year. This was under Batista, before Castro. And my dad actually, and my mom, they came to Los Angeles. My dad was aerospace engineer for Hughes Aircraft. And my mom lived in the same house since she moved there in 1949, so she lived there over 70 years. And she passed away 5 days before her 95th birthday. But there's some good news here. Good news is she came to faith a few weeks before she departed from us. So we know she has eternal life in heaven. Thank God. I mean, you can't ask more than that, right? And I know I will see her again. Now, just a couple things I need to mention. Mouth's getting a little dry. Okay. That synagogue in Vienna, where my mom saw all the atrocities, that's the only one that was not destroyed. And that is because, from what I understand, there were businesses around that. And I guess Nazis didn't want to set fire and destroy businesses for whatever reason. That was an Orthodox congregation that my grandfather went to in the 20s and the 1930s. There are still services there today on Shabbat. I was there a few years ago at a service. So thank God for that. And the testimony that I am giving you today, my mom actually, there's an actual videotape of that, of my mom. It's on a recording. It was made in the 1990s, and her recording is in the Simon Wiesenthal Museum and Center in Los Angeles, among other Holocaust survivors. And there's a very good documentary about the Kindertransport called Into the Arms of Strangers, Stories of the Kindertransport. Into the Arms of Strangers and Stories of the Kindertransport. You can see that for free online on Vimeo. That's Vimeo. You could probably buy it too on Amazon, perhaps. So, anyways, I want to end with this and say that, there are many things that happened after Hitler came to power, including complete rise in anti-Semitism that we're seeing right now in this world, everywhere, quite prominent in Europe, in the United States, here in Los Angeles, and in Orange County. And we need to be vigilant. We need to just be aware and understand what is going on in the world, what is going on around us. We just need to be aware and alert of our surroundings, our neighborhoods, and even know who our neighbors are. Because knowing and understanding is not only wisdom, it's a blessing. We need to be the watchman on the wall. Thank you very much. Okay. Larry, I talked to Larry, and he's going to let me do a bonus for you. Excuse me. You don't. Well, you could, but it's not the actual. It's not part of it. So it's okay if you just sit down. Yeah. So no, it's not the traditional Shema. I'm just doing a Shema song. The words are the same. The melody is different, which I composed, and I'm doing it for you for no extra charge. And you get an extra bagel next week, understand, right? Is there lox and cream cheese on it? Okay, I don't know. But anyways, this will get some wood. Okay. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Le'olam Va'ed Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Adonai Echad Adonai Echad. Thank you.